Hello all and welcome to part 2 testing of the charging circuit on a laptop motherboard. Okay, now in part 1 we went through the basics of how we're going to go about it. I'll put a link in the description to part 1 for anybody that hasn't seen it. Now the first thing we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the drawing and see which components we need to test. So we'll have a quick look at the drawing now. Okay, so this is the schematic for the Fujitsu motherboard, and this is the charging circuit. So if we have a look, we have the DC jack here with an input voltage of 19 volts. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to check CN11 and check for a 19 volt output from CN11. Then we're going to check for a voltage in on L43 and out of L43, and then we're going to check for a voltage in and out of F1. So we should have 19 volts at the DC jack on CN11, we should have 19 volts at L43 and out of L43, and we should also have 19 volts in and out of F1. So we'll go back to the board now and we'll test that now. Okay, so what we need to do first of all, we need to put some power onto this. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to plug the adapter into the motherboard. See if I can get in there around the legs of the camera. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Reposition that so we can see what's going on. Okay, right. We'll just zoom in just a little bit on that. Okay. So we've got our DC jack and our coil. So we've got the DC jack, which is this one here, and then we've got the coil here, and then we've got the fuse here. So these are the three components that we're going to check first of all. So the first thing we need to do, we need to put our negative leg onto our ground terminal. Okay, so I'll attach that to the ground terminal, and we set our meter to 20 volts DC range. And the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to check for an output off the DC jack. Okay, so I've got voltage there, and we're going to check this coil for voltage in. I can do this so you can see what I'm doing rather than my hands being in the way. So we're checking that coil there, and yes, we've got voltage in, and yes, we've got voltage out. And then we've got the fuse F1 here, and yes, we've got voltage in, and yes, we've got voltage out. So we now know that that's good, that's good, and that's good. So what we'll do now, we'll go back to the schematic and we'll have a look at the other components in the circuit. Okay, so we've checked the DC jack, we've checked L43, that coil, and we've also checked F1. So we move along, and the next component in line is Q22. Now this is a double diode. Now all three legs on one side are joined together, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and the four legs on the other side are joined together. So what we're going to do now, we're going to check for 19 volts in on pins 3, 2 and 1 of Q22, and we're going to check for 19 volts out on pins 8, 7, 6 and 5. Now we only really need to check one pin because these are all linked together on both sides. So we'll check for 19 volts in and 19 volts out on this. So we'll do that now and have a quick look at this this diode, which is on a little chip package with 2 diodes in. Okay, so if we look down here now, here is Q22. Now if you look here, we've got 4 legs on that side. Now the first 3, 1, 2 and 3 are all joined together, and 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the other side are all joined together. So all we need to do is check for a voltage in. Yes, we have voltage, and check for a voltage out, and yes, we have voltage there too. So we now know that this is good. Now if we had voltage in but we didn't have a voltage out, then we would be looking at this component being the problem that's failed. Now these sometimes do go open circuit, and they sometimes do go dead short as well. So we know that that component, so we'll go back to the drawing now and we'll have a look, see what else is in line next on the circuit to be tested. Okay, so we've now checked this component. We now know that all these components are all good because we have voltage in and out. Now if we look, it goes AD pin, AD pin. So basically what this schematic is telling us, that when we get to here, we then look for AD pin, which is here, and then it goes along to D20, and also comes down to D19. So we're going to check D20, D19 for voltage in, voltage out, and then we're also going to check on U16 on pin number 1 for DC in voltage. So we'll go back to the board now and we'll just check D19, D20 and U16 pin 1. Okay, so we're going to test D19 and D20, and we're also going to check U16. Now I'll just move this along just a little bit just so that we can get all of it into the shot. So where are we at? There we go, we can get most of it in there. Okay, so we're going to check D19, which is this little one here. Don't know if you can see that there, D19, and yes, voltage in, yes, voltage out, and D20, which is this one here, in, yes, and out, yes. And we also want to check U16 pin number 1. Now this little chip here, the charging chip, is U16, and if I just move this along just a little bit more so we can get it in, that's a bit better. And I'll just see if I can zoom in a little bit on that. I'll just get another one out of it there. Okay, I think that's the best we're going to get there. So we want to check for a voltage in. Now on this particular chip I don't have to test actually on the pins of the chip, because what they've actually done, where the critical pins come off the chip, what they've done, they've put little solder test points. So I don't know if you can see that on the board, but you'll see like there's a little plus sign there, and next to that, or just to the side of it there, is a little solder point with a test point. So that is attached to pin 1 on U16. So we check there, and yes, we have voltage. Now we need to check now the output voltage on this, so we need to go back to the drawing now and just have a look which is the output pin on this chip, and I believe it should be 5 volts out. So we get 19 in, and it should give us a 5 volts out on this charging chip. So we'll go back to the drawing and just have a look which pin it is. Okay, so we just move this along a bit now. So if we have a look now, we can see that we've got pin 16, pin 16, so we want to check for an output voltage of pin 16. We should have 5 volts output from pin 16. Then we want to be checking D22. Just move along, and as you can see by the drawing, we have a DC in there which attaches to that there. Now we know we've got voltage in and out, so we're good there. And the next bit is the V-pack. So now we need to find the V-pack. So let's just have a look. Here we go, the V-pack. So there's V-pack. So now we should have 10 volts coming in on F2 and out of F2 and to pin 1 on CN12. Because what happens now is, as it comes out, we get a voltage doubler, which then doubles the voltage up to give us the 10 volts for the charging of the battery. So we want to be checking for 10 volts on F2 in and out, and also on CN12 pin 1, and we also want to be checking on the output of D21. We should have 10 volts there, and we should have 5 volts here. Just move that up just a little bit, and we should have 5 volts on pin 16, and also we should have yeah, we've got a pull-up resistor there, so 296 R296. We should have a voltage as well. So we'll go back now to the board, and we'll just check for 5 volts out on pin 16, and then we'll check for voltage at D21 and F2 and CN12. So we'll go back to the drawing now. Okay, I've moved the board along a bit now so that we can see the last part of the circuit. Now we've got D21, I believe it was, which is just out of shot, but I've got voltage in and out on D21, and we also need to be checking for voltage in on F2, which is that fuse there. Yes, we have voltage in, and yes, we have voltage out. So we know that that fuse is good, and we want to check for a voltage out on the pin. Yes, we have voltage out on the pin. Now I'm also going to just remove the black lead off the board, and I'm just going to check across the 2 terminals now. So I'm checking on the neutral and positive terminal on the battery connector, and yes, I have the correct voltage there as well. So as you can, all we've done, we've just gone through each component, testing for an input and output voltage. Now with a charging circuit, pretty straightforward. You can use a multimeter. I would recommend a digital multimeter, and for other parts of the board timing crystals, things like that, you would need an oscilloscope to test other bits. Also, if you wanted to test the memory, you could do that, but you would also need an oscilloscope to check for signals in and signals out. But the charging circuit is straightforward. So I hope that helps some people out, and I hope you like the video. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. And if you'd like to leave a comment, we do appreciate any comments that are left, because we do like a bit of feedback on the videos. So I appreciate your time for watching, and I hope it's been a big help, and we'll see you again.